Hello, my name's Steve Kaufman. I'd like to welcome you to the Homespun Tape series, Learning to Flatpick, tape number 2. The song you just heard was Old Joe Clark, and we're going to deal with that in a little more detail further down the road a little bit. What I'd like to do is explain some of the things that we'll be covering in this tape. We'll be covering a little bit of theory, a little bit of use of the capo, a little bit of transposition, a little bit of how to play down the neck, a little bit of things that we'll just find out when we get there. Let me go ahead and start this tape by tuning you up. And the first note we'll tune up to is the E, first string open. Second string open is called a B. Third string open is the G. Fourth string open is the D. Fifth string open, the A. Sixth string open is the E. So memorize that. It's E, B, G, D, A, E. You need to know that for later. Okay, what I'm going to try to do here is answer a question that's asked me oftentimes, and that's how do you come up with a solo to a bluegrass vocal? Well, the most important thing is to find the melody first. And what I'll do is play a tune called Bury Me Beneath the Willow, and I'll play it as straight as possible. Straight meaning it's just going to be the part that you would be singing. And if there are places where you'll see that you'll hear there's a long note, and I'm going to follow it with strums, and that'll fill it out. And let me go ahead and just run through it one time and then figure out what we want to do from there. Let me give you a count off and we'll start it in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, what I did first there was I found the basic melody and filled it out with the strumming of whatever chord would go for that measure. And you can play through that and you'll find what chords I was playing. I'll go into the backup part in a minute. But you want to find the melody and keep it simple. If you don't play the melody, you're not playing the right tune. If you just sit there and jam on a tune, on a chord structure, you may not be playing the right tune. You might not know what, the way you want to set this up is if someone's walking in the room and you're in the middle of playing a song, you want them to be able to tell what song you're playing. So let me speed that up a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you were to come into that in the middle of the song, you would be able to hear what song it was. You might not, you would have recognized it from somewhere. It's not like it's just a jam, okay? And there weren't any fancy runs in that. It was plain and simple, the way it ought to be if you're just playing a song, a vocal lead part. Now what we're going to do is let's check out the backup part, and let me run some notes for you first. You know that your 6th string open is an E, then the F is the 1st fret, G is at the 3rd fret, open A, B is the 2nd fret, C is the 3rd fret, 5th string, then we go to the 4th string, D is open, E is the 1st fret, I'm going to use an F sharp because we're in the key of G, on the 4th fret, G is open, and that's as far as we're going to go for right now. The reason I'm bringing that up is if you're doing a backup part, and these chords were G, C, and D, or you can use D7 if you wanted to, what I'm going to do is hit the root of the chord, the root meaning the name of the chord. If we're on a G chord, the root would be a G, and I'm going to hit the lowest G that I can find, and then a strum, and then hit any other bass note that's available, and your bass notes are going to be your 5th string or your 4th string. Okay? So I'm going to hit a 6th string, then the 4th string. I could have hit the 6th string and then the 5th string just the same. And that would be your pattern for G. Anytime there's a G measure, if you want to keep it simple, you can just do that. 6th string, which is the G note, and then any other bass note. If you were on a D chord, you remember before when we tuned up, the 4th string opens a D. I'm going to hit that first, and then any other bass note that's available for the chord. And in this case, it's just the 5th string. If you ever notice some guitar players, they'll hook their thumb over the 2nd fret on the 6th string. The note on the 6th string open does not belong with a D chord. And here's one way you can tell what really belongs. Your 1st string open is an E. Your 6th string open is an E. If you hold a chord like a G chord, wherever you hold a note on the 1st string is where you'd want to hold it on the 6th string. And that way you know it would fit. It matches in the chord. On the D, you're holding down the 2nd fret on the 1st string. You're not holding anything on the 6th string. You don't want to play that note. If you do play that note, a note on the 6th string, you'll need the 2nd fret because you're holding the 2nd fret on the 1st string. So anyway, when you do a D measure in 4/4 time, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to start on the root first, which is your D note, and then hit any other bass note available. If you have your thumb over the top, you can hit that. That's now available. If you don't have your thumb over the top, you can hit the 5th string for your 2nd bass note in the measure. So a measure of D is going to count out going 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? G counted out the same way. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the first thing I hit was the 6th string 3rd fret G note. Okay? C is a little different. There's a breaker to every rule. The breaker of this one is your 1st string is open on a C chord. That means your 6th string open is available, but it sounds a little tacky, so you might want to stay away from it. So what I do for that is I'm going to take my 3rd finger and move it to the 6th string 3rd fret. And I'll alternate that between strums. So I'm going to start with the root of the chord. Let's see, A, B, C, off the C chord. And that's my first beat, then a strum, and then I'm going to alternate, 6th string and then strum. And when you strum through that C chord, you don't have to move your finger back real quick. Okay, just leave it there until after the strum, and then move it only when you need it. Okay, so the chords on Bury Me Beneath the Willow, we're going to use G, then we're going to go to C, then it goes back to G, and then we'll go to D. And I think for the second, there's 2 measures of D. For the 2nd measure of D, let's go to D7. Let's be wild. Here we go. Then it goes back to G, and then to C, and then G, D, G. Here we go. Just the rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now sometimes you'll hit a down strum and you'll come up, you'll hear a down up strum. And let me give you an example. I'll stay on G for a few measures. Here's straight time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to put a little down up motion in there. 2, 3, 4. You can do that. You can do that whenever you want to. It might sound a little cluttered after a while. You might want to stay away from it most of the time. And you don't want to emphasize that upswing, or it's going to sound like you've tried to emphasize that upswing. You don't want it to sound like... All I'm doing is I'm bringing my right hand up in order to hit the next bass note, and I happen to be catching a few strings is the only way I think about it. I'm catching a few. All right, so we were talking about the G, C, and D chord. Now let's deal with the... You have several other chords. You have A, B7 is used a lot in bluegrass. B, not as much. We did C. We'll need F. We'll need E. I believe that's it. So let's go to A. A, you would be hitting your A string open. And then I like to hit the 6th string open after that. I like to go as low as I can get them. So there's the 5th string open, 6th string open for A. B, or B7, will work like your C chord did. You'll take your 5th string note, that's your root. Let's see, A is open string, B is the 2nd fret, so you'll hit the B note first, and then a strum, and then take your 2nd finger and move it to the same fret of the 6th string, and that's your 2 bass notes. All right, and remember there's a strum in between it in 4/4 times, so it's going 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We already did C, that alternates. Let's see, after C I'd go to D, we did that. 4th string open, 5th string. E starts on the lowest E note that you have, which is going to be your 6th string. That's why it's important to remember that it's E, B, G, D, A, E. You're going to need to find these bass notes fast and out of habit, you know. But E is going to be your 6th string open. That's your first note on the E chord. Now, another thing to point out, it doesn't matter if it's an E minor or an E7. If I was on a C7 or a C minor, it wouldn't matter, D minor. Still, the bass notes are still the same. Your root, and then another bass note that fits with the chord. All right? So let's see, I was up to E. E is the 6th string open, and then any other bass note available, and in this case you would have the 5th string or the 4th string. All right? If you hold an E7, it doesn't matter. 6th string first, and then the 5th string or the 4th string. F is just like C was. You start on the F note, and I'll give you, well, I already played it. I gave it away. I was going to have you find where it was. F, 4th string, while you hold the F chord, and then I take my 3rd finger and move it on down to the 5th string. And an important thing when you do that moving your finger on down is what you're actually doing is you're going to mute out the string that your finger left. All right? So you're hitting the 4th string, then you're going to mute out the 4th string. And you can hear it thucking there. And what I'm doing is taking the pad of my finger and laying it on the 4th string. Don't try to do this. A lot of my students will do this. They'll when they cross over from the 4th to the 5th string, they'll try to overcompensate that thud, and then you're going to end up hearing something. You don't necessarily want that note. All right. So the 4th string strum and the 5th string strum. That's F. G we already covered. All right. All right. Now we're going to talk about the ancient art of cross-picking. It's something that seems to be dying off a little bit, and you young ones, when you get older, you pass it on to your kids. What cross-picking is a roll, almost like a finger-style roll, and let me give you an example of cross-picking. Here's just the open strings, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. That was one measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And let me do several measures. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And what you're actually doing is you're crossing over a string in a roll, and I guess that's just where it comes from, basic enough, cross-picking. So I'm going to go down on the first one, up on the second one, down. I'm crossing over the 3rd string. I just hit the 2nd. I'm crossing over the 3rd string, and I'm going to come up on the 4th. Okay, same thing, same 4 notes. Down, up, and then let me finish it through now. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and it would go down, up pattern all the way through. Here we go. Now, it doesn't matter what chords you're holding down if you want to just practice it. In fact, if you've got someone that you're driving up the wall by practicing, just hold your strings. Just kill them, and you'll just get a thud. All right? And you do that until someone throws something at you. All right? And you're going for speed. All right? Go as fast as it'll go. Now, you can hold any chord. And let me hold a C chord. Let's go to D. All right. Now that's what cross picking is. Work on that for a little while, and we're going to put it to use in "Bury Me Beneath the Willow." Now what we'll do is we're going to take an F chord and move it up 2 frets. That's going to make it a G chord. And we're going to use the first, second, and third string of that G chord, of that new G chord, which means you don't need your ring finger down. Okay, you'll be wasting energy by trying to hold it down. All right, so let me go over that again. So it's F, F sharp, and then G. Here we are at G, and that's the main position. We're going to go to C and back to G, but we're only going to cross pick a little bit in it, just to get started with it. And the pattern is not going to be on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. It's going to be dealing with the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st string, okay? And I'll give 3 lead-in notes. So it'll go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let me hold it there. So that's pretty much the cross-picking part. You're just really cross-picking G a little bit, and you're cross-picking C a little bit. When you get to C, you'll notice all I need is my first finger down. I might have had more at the time, but you really only need the one finger. So let me start that again. And remember, watch your down-ups. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's keep going. Watch those down-ups. There you go. Now that last run was the Lester Flat G run, which you can find in Happy Trom's Learning to Flat Pick Tape 1. Wouldn't you know I'd muff the last note. Watch this now. Okay. So there's that run, and let me speed up Bury Me Beneath the Willow, and you've got the tab there, and you've got the tape, and you can rewind it and check it out again. 3 lead-ins. 1, 2, 3, 4. Use that same pattern, 4, 3, 2, to another song that's in Happy's tape number 1, The Wildwood Flower, one of the most requested guitar tunes. And let me play a straight break to it, so we've established some melody, and there'll be some chords in there. And no, I don't think I'll put any hammer-ons, just real straight, and then we'll see how to cross-pick it, all right? did put one hammer on, but I don't think you'll hold that against me. Here we go with a cross-picking version. And notice the melody notes. They're going to stand out. And I'll start with the two-note lead-in that it usually has. Okay, I'll go ahead and play the first 4 measures real slow, and then it repeats, so there's no need to do it twice. And then it doesn't even cross-pick till the end again, and by then you'll have it licked. Here we go. One thing to keep in mind is when you cross-pick, you want to emphasize certain things, and what I do is I can feel my pick wrapping back around my first finger on my upswings. I'm really overemphasizing the upswings. So hear the pull there? All right, so you want to try to keep everything even. By what you're actually doing is over-exaggerating your upswings. Lots of times, especially if you have a tape recorder that you can see a LED light going up and down, you'll notice that your upswings will drop. One thing to concentrate on to bridge between the beginner and the intermediate advanced player is continuity in your sound. You want all your notes to be fairly even in volume. You don't want it to go where your upswings are weaker than your downs. All right, so over-exaggerate them, and in the cross-picking you even go a little stiffer. And you can even move your hand back against the bridge a little farther and get a crisper sound. So we were talking about the tone difference. If you're doing a cross-picking roll near the sound hole or near the bridge, and let me go ahead and run that one more time. So I'm going to start out near the sound hole. Now I'm moving over to the bridge, and it sounds a lot stiffer. If I need to do a cross-picking roll and I want to really make it sharp and right out front, then I'll go ahead and come back to the bridge a little bit, not too far, but just so it sounds, it gives us more resistance, I guess is what's happening, is the string has more resistance near the bridge. So I've got to drive my cross-picking roll through these big heavy strings, medium gauge. And I'll get a little sharper tone that way. So let me run Wildwood Flower one time fairly quickly for you, up to speed cross-picking, and I'll do the first half of it up near the sound hole and the second half back here, and you see which one you like better. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Let's move back to the bridge now. So you kind of determine which tone you like best. So you're going to use different tones for different situations. You'll notice there was one place where I hit a big, we call it the big wide one, a full C chord. Instead of going I just strummed right through the chord. And that's more dynamic, it's got more effect. Now let's talk about jumping from beginner to intermediate as far as tone is concerned. The key word that you'll have to always remember is sustain, okay, with two big S's. You want to make sure that your notes ring as long as possible. So let's talk about this cross pick and roll just one more time real briefly. You'll notice that when I hit this roll, I'm leaving my second finger down on the third string as long as possible. If I don't, it sounds like this. And it makes it real choppy, so you need to sustain your notes. Another thing that seemed obvious to me that might not have been is that I'm leaving my first finger down the whole time. If I take that loose, it really sounds ragged. And that's the kind of sounds you'll end up having. You need to avoid those kind of things. Even on Bury Me Beneath the Willow, you want to make all your notes sound like an open string. See how long the hammer-on held on there? I didn't jump off with my first finger off that hammer-on note. It stayed a full length of time, okay? And we also talked about down-ups, and I haven't talked about them yet, but what I try to do is make my right hand follow my foot. If you tap your foot 4 times a measure, you're tapping it on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Your hand does the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, which means that on all the numbered beats, your pick is going to go down, and on when your foot comes up, your pick comes up. If you're tapping your foot 4 times a measure, most of the time, well, in the last couple of years, I've been able to just tap it once and stay in time. But it's the same kind of thing. Your right hand is going to follow your foot. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Do that. If you don't do that, you have a high likelihood of crashing at high speeds, okay? If you were trying that roll at that speed, you more than likely would crash. And you might even have been playing for a while and not know why you crash. You know, if you're playing a Fast Break, Red-Haired Boy, Salt Creek, some of these tunes, you might crash somewhere, or your right hand will lock up. And the reason for that is it's not following your foot, which is your foot and your right hand is your final step it's your final release of your inner timing. If you're playing a song, if you're listening to a song, you can start tapping your foot right away. Your foot just knows right when to start in. If your right hand does not follow your foot, you're fighting against that inner timing, or you're going to be fighting nature, and you know you don't win fighting nature. All right? Let's look at another tune right now. Let's look at the Wabash Cannonball, because that's a good tune just to sit around singing and picking. And we'll just do the instrumental part, because we won't sing right now. And let me play just the straight melody. All right, so you know what we're playing against, and then there might be some cross-picking in it. Let's find out. That big Lester Flat G run right at the end. You can finish almost any song in the key of G with that if it's in 4/4 time. All right, so there was the straight melody to Wabash Cannonball. Let me run it one more time a little slower, then we'll run it one more time a little faster with a few little licks thrown in there. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Your right hand follow your foot. Be sure it's doing that. notice that I chose to get that sharper, bitier tone of the last G run, so I moved back to the bridge. Now let's see, what can we do to that song to make it fancier? One thing you can do is you can, and still remain with the melody. One thing you can do is let's see, I'm going to run it fast for a second. Right here, you can do a trick that Doc Watson uses a lot, and Norman Blake, is hitting your melody note on a different string. So I'm going to take it on the 3rd string, 4th fret, with my 2nd finger, and my 1st finger on the 2nd string, 3rd fret, and I'm going to hit 2 notes at once, which is giving me a harmony. And then what Doc liked to do is slide into it. So if you'll look at the tablature, you'll see a slash that slides, an up slash that is pointing at the 3 and the 4. That means you're sliding into that note. You don't slide past it, you slide into it. And all I'm doing is starting at the 2nd and 3rd fret on the 2nd and 3rd string and sliding into the 3rd and 4th in one lick. It's a downswing. It's going to be your foot's going to go down, your pick's going to go down, and it hopefully is going to be in time. Right? So you'll have 2 of those slides, and that's your, we're doing the Wabash Cannonball, so that's your train sound. All right? All right? Here we go. Let's slip it in there. The same. So let's see what else we can stick in there. We on the D chord, when it goes to D, right there, we can fancy it up by putting a hammer on from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret on the 3rd string, 1st to 3rd finger. So the hammer on, leave your 1st finger down on the 3rd string, 2nd fret, and nail it with your 3rd finger onto the 4th fret. The way to picture that hammer on is just like the thing on the gun, the hammer on the gun, right? And it's going to nail it. One way that I have my students do this is I hold their finger and I say, okay, go ahead and try to push that down. And they're showing the resistance, and I just let it go. That's what you want it to do, to nail it, all right? You can even do it without hitting the string if you hit it hard enough. All right? So here we go. We're going to put that in the D part. Okay? So let's see what we've got right now. Fancied up the Wabash Cannonball a little bit, and you work on that and take some of the techniques from cross picking that we dealt with, and I'm just going to play it real quick and show you where you can slip in some cross picking. All right? This one's up to you to get. 1, 2, 3. Put in there before the big Lester Flat G run is a. Now as far as your right hand goes, they're all 8th notes. They're all going to go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then your Lester Flat run, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. A lot of people make this mistake. They'll go down, up, down, down. They figure, well, I'm going that way. I'm going to the ground anyway. I might as well hit 2 downs in a row. Well, it's not that way. If you're going at a high speed, you'll crash. Okay, so be sure you go down, up, down, up. 4th string's got to be an up. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And then strum the big wide one. So now you have a little bit of a fancy break to Wabash Cannonball. Let's look at Old Joe Clark. That's what we first started with. Now my capo's off right now, and just to keep the tape rolling, we'll just go ahead and leave it off. But you want to play that in the key of A, and that's where we played it at the very beginning, and Happy did a an excellent job on second guitar, and he was using the long A chord. You'll notice that, and then he came down here. We talked about taking an F chord and moving it down. Well, he took an F chord and moved it down 2 past that G chord and went to an A. All right? F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. All right, so he was playing an A, and I was playing an A with a capo on the 2nd fret, G position. Now we'll just do it in G position. And let me run a straight break for it, and there'll be some 8th notes in there, and be sure to watch out for the 8th notes. When you're looking at the tablature, the quarter notes just have a stick or a stem off them. There's just one stem. It's not tied to another note. If it's tied to another note, that makes it an 8th note. What that means is that your quarter notes are always hit down, and that's when your foot's going to go down. They're just, let's take a measure of 8th notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those were the first 4 8th notes in Old Joe Clark. And they're all hit on the down, and you'll notice by looking at the tab that it's just a stick coming off of each one. Or from your side, it's going this way. Okay, so it's down, 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 up, down. And then if you had them tied together at the bottom, that means they're going down and then the next one's up. And every 2 tied together take the same amount of time as one single note, okay? So if I hit the first 4, going into the 2nd measure, you'll see that there's 2 3s that are tied together. That means the first one's a down, the 2nd one's an up. So let me run the first 2 measures. The last 2 were fast ones. Now let me run through the whole first part. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is a standard fiddle tune, so that means that the first part goes twice and the second part goes twice. Now let's look at the second part. We're going to start with a slide from the 2nd fret to the 5th fret on the 4th string. When I get to the 5th fret, that's going to be the same tone as the 3rd string open. So we would say we're going to slide into a unison, where both notes are the same. Okay, so that's going to be a down swing followed by a down up. Here's a hammer on, F, slide, all right, so the slide is another thing that's important in bluegrass music. You don't want to slide and let your finger come right off the string. If I did that, it would sound like this. And it would just shoot off. It wouldn't sustain. This is what you want. See, I let it ring into the next passage. So here's all the way through Old Joe Clark, 2 times each part. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you have Old Joe Clark. If you want a follow-up version to Old Joe Clark, that's the beginner intermediate style version. You can check out the homespun series that I did. That's a 6 audio cassette series of parking lot picking tunes, and that's in there, and it's all in depth. And check it out, and any other fiddle tunes that you want, because we're going to do one more fiddle tune from that series because of to try to answer another question that is often asked: how do you play down the neck? What we're going to do is take a fiddle tune like Arkansas Traveler, and we're going to play it in C position. If you play with a mandolin or a fiddle player, be sure you capo up on the 2nd fret because they do it at a D. All right? So you'll capo up 2 places. We're going to do it in C position. If you took the C chord and moved it 2 frets up, you'd have C, C sharp, and then D, and then the capo goes behind it. That puts you in D, in the key of D. All right, let's do a simple break to, well, simple to some, hard to others. It's, you be the judge. Here we go. It's Arkansas Traveler in C position. 1, 2, 3, 4. After you learn that version to Arkansas Traveler, what I want you to try to do is this, and do this with any fiddle tune or any tune that you know that's not mostly made up of strums, that's in the key of C or G or D, is to try to make like a little cast for your first finger. And what we're going to do is not use the first finger. That's the first step in moving down the neck. Because when you play down the neck, what you're really doing is playing things that you've learned from the basics. Everything that's advanced will come from basics somehow. All right, so we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to play a little bit of this without my first finger, and you'll see what I mean. What we're doing is strengthening up the little finger. And even on the second part, which is the part that's really going to wear you out, you'll feel it. If you don't hurt back here, something ain't right, because that should start burning after a while. I was hoping I'd get that right. So anyway, now what you can do is move up 1 fret. Every place where you played an open string, you'll now use your first finger. Let's move up 2 frets so it doesn't sound too tacky. Now we're going to be in the key of D. All right, so I'm going to start when I was in C without my first finger. I started with my second finger. That's where I'm going to start, 2 frets higher. So I'll be second finger on the 3rd fret. No open strings. All right, that means now that you can move it even farther if you want to. Say some hot dog comes up to you and says, let's play Arkansas Traveler in the key of E flat. Well, you say, fine. All right, so you can move up anywhere. What you're actually doing is getting used to notes that are usually hit in the key of, if we're at the 2nd fret, in the key of D, at the 5th fret, I'll call it 5th fret, in the key of E, and then F, G. All right, so you're getting used to the notes that you can hit. Let's try the second part there. Okay, when you get used to what notes you can hit and what you can't, you'll make less mistakes, all right? So try that with a lot of fiddle tunes, you can do Old Joe Clark the same way. The only hard part you'll have in doing something like that, and you'll have to just think on the fly or work something out, is the slide. That's just hard to deal with, but you can do something else and use your imagination and come up with things. All right? So let's take another look at Old Joe Clark, and we're going to make it a little fancier now. And what I'm going to do is I'll have the straight melody part, and then I'm going to add some eighth notes in there. And what I'll do is first add eighth notes. I'm going to leave the first two the same, and then I'm going to fancy up instead of just hitting an F and then an E, I'm going to hit a first fret, then the third fret, and then the first fret, and then open. And that'll be our first step. And this is how you would build a flat pick and solo, is you find places that are going to have the melody remain the same or embedded into a run somewhere. So here we go with Old Joe, and let's see what happens with it. So what I did on the first part was I played it straight for the first two notes, and then I added some eighth notes in, and then it's just kept building from there on. The final run being... All right, so I hit the first measure was like this, and then it was straight. Then it got a little fancier. I'm not hitting any of the same notes that we learned first. The same way. This measure's about close, except I changed the last two notes. And now I'm going to do a repeat of what we just did. And then the final run. Now that last run was a stock run, which means that it can fit in any song that has a measure of G, a measure of D, or half a measure of G, half a measure of D, and then it goes back to G. There's the G part, here's the D part, and then back to G. Right? Here's with the chord behind it. See how that's fallen into the chord pattern? Now, a stock run is one that you want to take and learn in any key you can. Let's look at it in the key of C, or for a C chord. Here's for D. See, it's a stock run. Once you find it in one place, find it somewhere else. Now, in the opening, we did Old Joe Clark. And what I did was I played the first break in the higher register on the first couple strings. And then I went down to just about the same notes in the bass area. I don't know if you caught it or not, but it was really the same break, just about the same break. It sounded different, and if you'd heard it several times, if you run the tape back and forth, you'll notice, yeah, it is the same notes. All right, but when it just comes out one time, you might not even notice it. All right, so you can go ahead and take Old Joe Clark here and learn it note for note in the bass. Even that last stock run we talked about. All right, you can do things like that. You can find it, try to find the same song in a different key. Now that's not where it would normally be played, but at least you'll have an advantage. You'll know how you'll know how to use your ear, or what I call the Bible method, and that's seek and ye shall find. There was the last run in the key of C. F, A, and you're building up a vocabulary of runs that you'll hopefully be able to interject into any song at the main point. All right, now let's look at the second part to Old Joe Clark. There's not too much that I really like to do to it, only because the second part is so strong. Let me play it one time the straight way, and remember it starts with a slide. So what I'm going to do to change that is I'm going to keep with the slide because that's the hook. That's a good strong part there. Now I'm going to slip a little run in here. And you can still hear the melody travel down. That was the melody part. Now we changed it to hammer on stays there. You can cross pick here because you are by now a master of the cross pick. Now slide again. Now slip this run in. Here, let's put it together. All right, let's pick the whole thing up and put it to full speed. We talked about the lead to Arkansas Traveler. Now let's look at the backup part. Originally, I believe, as far as I know, the original part for the backup was to stay on a C chord for a while, then it changes to G7, then it goes back to C, so there's only 2 chords in it. One time through, the first part would sound like this as far as the backup goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. The second part, I believe, let me play through the second part. I think it's going to have a C. It stays on C for a long time. It's the same kind of thing. It's a 2-chord song originally. So it stays there for a while. What we're going to talk about is first know the chords the way they should be, but now let's see what we can put in there. You can take the first 2 measures, that's supposed to be C, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can change quickly from C to A minor to G7 back to C. Then go to G and stay there a little bit. And then repeat the same thing. C, A minor, G7, C. Now at the end you can go C to F to G7 back to C, and then you can do the whole thing one more time. The second part has a whole mess of chords you can slip in there, only because the substitution chords wrap around the melody. So it's going to go from C to F to C to G7, C to F to D7 to G7, and then I'll call them out as we go. 2, 3, 4. C to F, to G7, back to C. That's because the melody goes. So you can see I wrapped chords around the melody. Now the only problem with doing these chord variations like this is they become very addicting. If I was playing rhythm for a guy, say he was an old-time fiddle player, and he's doing his, in the back of his head he's hearing it go like that, but I'm going to slip these other chords in. Now he's either going to look at me and give me a funny look, or he's going to smile. If he smiles, then I know I keep doing what I'm doing. If he gives me a funny look, cut it out, go back to the straight chords, just play straight. But they really enhance it, and I like a lot of extra chords put in there. So let me run all the way through the first part twice, second part twice, and I'm going to slip some bass runs in there too, and then I'll slow them down after. And play along with this now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. Second part. Second part. There you go. Now the only bass walk I did was a G into C bass walk. And it's because it was supposed to be 2 measures of G, and that was starting to get a little old for me. So if you can find this, it's hitting the 3rd fret, 6th string, there's my root, G, and I'm walking into C. So I'm going to start on the G, I'm going to end on the C, and I got to find 4 beats of material before I get to the C. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm into C. So it's the 3rd fret, 6th string, then open 5th, 1st fret 5th, 2nd fret 5th, now I'm in C. When I hit that final note, that's the first beat of the C measure. All right? Now I said that you need 4 beats worth of stuff before you get into C. That means that you can hit a bass note and a strum, and then another bass note and another bass note. There's your 4 beats. As long as it adds up to 4, you could hit a bass note and 3 strums if you want to break up the rhythm somehow, but it has to add up to 4. Let's look at some bass walks. You're going to, this one is a walk from G into C. You can do the same thing, moving it, starting it on the 5th string and moving it up to the 4th string. The same walk you did from G to C is the same for C to F. Now I'm into F, so there's my 4 notes. 2, 3, 4, now I'm into F. Now you can do the same thing for other chords using the Bible method. Seek and ye shall find. Here's E, here's A to a D chord. It had the same sound. Let's see. Let me back up. That's an E to an A. Now when you find that one, A to D is exactly the same. We're going to start on the root, the A string, B, C sharp, and then brings you right into D. It has the same sound. Here's G to C, C to F, E to A to D, and you can change that by hitting your bass note and then a strum, and then the 2 bass notes, and get into your chord that you're traveling to, G into C. C into F works the same way. E to A, as long as there are 4 beats. Now let's talk about how you can move chords around. We're going to take Salty Dog as our example. Salty Dog, it goes from G to E7, to A7, into D. You can go to D7 right after it, back into G. Okay, that's your chord structure. Now what we're going to do is start moving chords around. To understand how you move chords, though, you have to picture a piano keyboard. And surely almost everybody's been force-fed piano at some point, or have seen a piano keyboard. You know that you have white and black keys. The white keys are your regular notes. They go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it goes on forever. Your black keys are your sharps, if you go up, or your flats if you come back down. And the sharp and the flat is in the same place. For example, you have an A note. The next place up is an A sharp. That's the black key between the two white keys. If you don't have a piano in front of you, let me show it to you this way. Here's an A note. The next one up is the A sharp. The next one up is a B. The one in between was the black key to the piano, but in between here's the A, here's the B. In between is an A sharp, and we can also call it a B flat. I'm just going to call them sharps, though, and I'll deal with that in just a second, though. You have two places that don't have sharps between them, and these are the two to burn in your mind. B goes right to C, E goes right to F. Wherever you find an E note on a guitar or a piano or a trumpet, doesn't matter. It's universal. The next note is going to be F. Wherever you find a B, the next note's going to be C. In guitar talk, what that means is wherever you find a B note, the next fret is going to be C. If you find an E note, the next fret's going to be an F. Doesn't matter where they are. If you have a guitar chart, you can look at it and find that wherever you find an E, it goes right to F, and B goes right to C, everywhere. And all other notes or letters have sharps between them, sharps and flats, all right? So let's look at the first string. E is open. It goes right to F. There was no fret between E and F. Then F sharp, then G sharp, then A sharp, B. Here's a B. My next one is C. B goes right to C. Every time in probably every language, B goes right to C. Let's take the third string. It's a G. First fret's going to be a G sharp, and then an A sharp, B. Here's another B. I can match that up with my second string open to make sure I'm in the right place. Hopefully they're in tune. So there's the B, and second string open proved that I did hit it right. The next one's a C. C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. Now, when you get to your double dots on the guitar, sometimes they have them in front, sometimes they're on top. Double dots mean you're starting over, okay? So whatever that string is open at the 12th fret is the same note. It's an octave higher, but it's the same letter. Now, you can check yourself. What you ought to do is run your notes, just like what I did on the third string. I ran all the way up to the 12th fret, and I made sure that I was correct when I hit the double dots. The string is open, it's a G. When I hit the double dots, it better be a G. If I said a G sharp or an F sharp, then I messed up somewhere. I got to go back and find out what I did wrong. And probably it was going from B to C or E to F, okay? Now, the reason I skipped over the second string, it's a B, my first fret's a C. There's nothing in between B and C, and I covered that on the first string. E goes right to F, but I wanted to give an example that on the third string, it's open as G. The first fret's G sharp. It didn't go right to A. There's a fret in between G sharp and A, all right? And that's why I skipped from the first to the third string. Run them on all your strings. Get used to saying E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. By the time you get to the 12th fret, it better be the same as that string open or you messed up. Okay, the reason I'm bringing that up is because your chords move the same way as your single notes do. Say I had a D chord. That's D. The next fret up from D, if here's a D note, the next note up is D sharp. The next one after that's E. If I take a D chord, I can move it the same way. There's the D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C. It just shoots up there. All your chords do that. The only problem is some chords have open strings in them and they don't sound that great when you move them. There's your C chord. If I move it up one fret, theoretically I'm going to C sharp. But my third string's open, so that doesn't work. So what I'm going to have to do is shift my fingers around so that I'm holding the C with my last three fingers. I'm not using my first. And we kind of went over that before about not using your first because you're going to need it later. Okay, here's my C chord. If I move up one fret, I'm going to cover up the first string and the third string with my first finger. Now I have a C sharp chord. If I go up again, theoretically it should be D. That's not the D that you're used to looking at, but it's still a D. If I get rid of my last finger and my ring finger and just look at what I'm holding, there's the D that I learned many, many years ago. So that's your original D. Now we're holding it with the first finger across these three strings, second finger on the second string, ring finger out, it's looking just like a C chord. Now we're moving it down. Little finger on the end. Okay, there's the D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, etc. all the way down the line. You have to compensate for your open strings when you're moving these chords, but when we're going to deal with Salty Dog, what we're going to do is use what we call short chords. I'm going to use, it goes from G to an E, or an E7, then up to an A, and I'll use an A7 after that, and then D. So I'm going to take my G chord, and the way I found this G was I took the F and F sharp and G like we talked about before. There's my G chord at the 3rd fret. It looks like an F. Okay, I'm going to take the E7 and I'm going to pull it out from a D position, or a D7 chord. There's a D7. If I just hit the first 3 strings, I don't want to hit the 4th because it's not going to move with me. There's the D7, D sharp 7, E7. If I needed an F7 for some reason and I didn't want to hold it in a bar chord, and that's the way the book would show it, something fairly ugly like that, I could take another chord and move it. So there's a D7, D sharp 7, E7. The A is going to look like the F position at the 5th fret. I was at the 3rd fret with G, G sharp A, and then I'm going to jump into an A7 after that. I'm going to take the E7 that we just found and move it till I find A. E7, F7, F sharp 7, G7, G sharp 7, A7. Now I'm going to take the F chord we did before and run it up till I find a D. Let's see, I found that A was at the 5th fret. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. And I'll just use the first 3 strings. So that's what we're going to do, but now first I'm going to play a straight break to Salty Dog Blues so you hear the melody. And then we're going to, since you are now a master of cross-picking, we're going to cross-pick a break to Salty Dog. Now what we're going to do is take the Salty Dog break that you just learned and we're going to turn it into a cross-picking break. Now I'll give you fair warning, the last run in this is going to be the last run of Arkansas Traveler. In C position it's in C position, not using your first finger. But what we're going to do is take that run and move it up to G. All right, because the last chord in this song is G. And it's going to be, well, I won't tell you where it's going to be. You'll figure that out. You're going to take a C run and you're going to move it up to G. C, C sharp, B, etc., okay? You'll end up seeing where it is. Here we go. So we're going to cross-pick the G, the now G chord. It was F. We're going to go to the E7. We're going to go to the A. A7. D, and I did a walk down into G, and here's the G run. Here you go again. Let's pick it up a little bit. So we took a run that we learned in one song as a tag run and moved it up before. So now we got it in G. And now we're cross-picking a break, which really sounds tough to Salty Dog. You got a banjo usually playing it and they're doing a solid roll. So now you're coming in with your cross-picking roll. It takes a long time to cross-pick. Don't skip any steps. Be sure you're going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, or you won't make it. You'll crash. we can do another thing is when we get to the A chord, it's a long time on A. You have 2 measures of A. So you're doing 1 measure of A down here at the 5th fret, then you're shifting it to a D7 position at the 8th and 9th fret. You can do a walk-up from A to A7, and it would be the A chord, a G7, G sharp 7, A7, and it'll sound like this. Then you're in D for a long time, I believe it's 2 measures. That's all D right there. You can take the D chord and walk it back. And what I'm going to do is open up my 2nd string. Yeah, I'll leave it closed. Here I'm going to open it. And that's a D walk back to G, if you didn't want to use your run. Okay, so I'm going to use a D, back it up 2 frets, and open up your 2nd string. The tone doesn't really go with it, but hopefully you'll be going so fast no one will ever stop you. So you'll have this. Now you can do several things with this tune. You can do runs. There's a G run and an E run. Had the same tone to it. An A run. D. Into G. You just have to have a way to connect your runs together, or to have some continuity between them. What I did first was a G run and then an E run, but both runs sounded basically the same. They were just for different keys, so it must have been a stock run. Here's an A run, that would be the same. And then a D run, it would be the same. Let's see, yeah. Well, that wasn't the same, but we won't argue with that. You have to come up with a run and have some continuity, though. So here would be something that you could try to figure out that would be close to what I did. Pick and break. There's the melody. Here's another run. There are a lot of things to do. It's a vocal tune. You want to try to have melody in there somewhere, and so people know what it is, but just try to come up with runs that you can use that interconnect your chords. Easier said than done, but use the Bible method, and seek and ye shall find. All right, for the final tune of this Homespun series, we're going to take a look at Down Yonder. By now, you're already a master of cross-picking. You know that B goes right to C, E goes right to F, and you can take chords and run them up and down the neck. You can play without your first finger in C position and some in G. So you can play solos that way. That's what you need to be trying to do. And move them up the neck and learn different positions, stemming from the basic positions that you've already done. So let's take a look at Down Yonder, and we're going to break it down. We're going to start with that trick I told you about Doc Watson doing. The train slide we did in Wabash, he uses that. We'll go ahead and slip that in too. Let me run through it kind of slow one time, and then we'll pick it up a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now, as soon as you hit the last note, you're ready to start again. It goes right back into it again, okay? So the last run is, if you want to wrap it back around and start over again, you're back right in the beginning again, all right? Now, one thing that is a trick that Earl Scruggs used to do is, and I don't know if this is legal for me to do this, but he would rub his forehead and get some forehead grease. I proposed that to a student one time whose mother was sitting in the room, and I said, he needs some forehead grease on his fingers, he's not sliding. And she said, forehead grease? My son has no forehead grease. But I noticed that when I was doing the C slides, that my hands were sticking. So just go ahead and rub a little oil on your fingers, and you'll be able to slide. Okay, so it starts off with a double slide. You got your introduction 3 notes, and the 2 slides are 2 beats each. This part's not bad. Watch out for your down notes, okay? Now you're going to slide into your 5th fret and your 3rd fret, starting at the 2nd and the 4th, with your 1st and 3rd finger. What you're actually doing, if you look above that measure, it says C. What you're actually doing is sliding into a C chord. This is another way to hold a C chord. It's a short way to hold a C chord. So you're sliding in with your 1st and 3rd finger. There are 2 beats each. Watch out. Okay, that part there, you have to have ways of jumping from position to position. What we in the bluegrass field do is use an open string to jump from, in this case, from 1st position, where my 1st finger at the 1st fret, up to 3rd position. I'm using the open string to come back and then land with my 3rd finger back to the 1st. If you do things, here's an example. And I'm using the open string in order to jump up and down. Use your open strings to your advantage that way. If you have to jump up the neck for some reason, find a way to use an open string. Okay, so you're using an open string. I had too much forehead grease on my fingers and slid right past it. So here we are at the 2nd section with the C chords. Okay, that passage there, you're going to use your 3rd finger and your 1st finger and hitting the B and the A note, and then the G open. Now you could just as well use your 2nd string open. In fact, that's the way Doc Watson would do it. That's a Doc Watson roll. But I'm trying to narrow my pick strokes down, so I'm staying on 1 string as much as possible there. Then let's get your train sound. Now we're going to hammer on into the A chord. Above the measure it says A. So I'm hammering on to the 2nd string. You can see the A note in there. Or, the note for the A chord. Now here's the hook of the song. Now it's back to the top. This part here, I'm going into an A chord. We talked about A being at the 5th fret. I'm using the 2nd and 3rd string. I don't need the 1st string, so I don't need to bar this. I'm using the 1st and 2nd. I don't need my ring finger, so that's as much of an A as I need. That's why I went to the 5th and the 6th fret. G, G sharp, A. the melody is in there with a harmony. Now I'm hitting this part, the 2 7s. Well, we said before this was a C chord at the 5th and the 3rd fret, C sharp, D. If you look above that measure, it says D. So I'm right at the D spot, and then I'm going up to a G spot, and that's where the 8 comes in. It's G note. Let's go over some of the things that we've talked about in this series. One of the most important things is B goes to C, E goes to F. All right? Everything else is going to have a sharp between it. E, F, F sharp, G. Get used to running your notes so you get an idea of what you're doing. When you learn bar chords later, it's going to come in handy. You'll need to know that. Another thing is people ask me what kind of picks do I use, what gauge strings. I'm using a medium Tortex, the yellow Tortex pick. And I usually put my thumb on the name part. On this one, it's all wore out, but I like them when they're broken in a little bit. I hold it with my thumb and my index finger only. I don't use. Some people use a 2-finger method, and I'm using just one. When I go to attack the string, and it's an actual attack, as you've heard in some of the songs, I'm trying to sink in as much pick as I can in there. That way, a little 16 or 17 gauge wire is not going to stop my 3-pound arm from swinging through it. I sink as much pick as I can and drive it through. Try to overcompensate the ups to make sure that again, 16 gauge wire is not going to stop it. I think on this it's a 17. I'm using medium gauge strings, so I guess that's a 13 and a 17, and 26, and they're phosphor bronze John Pierce. And if I was playing mandolin, I'd use the green Tortex, but I like these yellow Tortex. Anything else? And one other thing I'd like to say is when you're playing, say you're out at playing at someone's house and you're playing through these tunes, hopefully you'll have them at the right speed and are keeping up fine. But one thing to consider when you're playing your rhythm, if you can't hear the person that's playing the lead, then consider yourself being the one that's too loud and you back off. That's a little bit of like a jam etiquette type thing. All right, you have 6 strings and you're playing 6 strings when someone else is just playing 1. So your 6 strings are definitely going to drown them out. Be considerate when you're playing your rhythm. You don't have to play as loud as the instrument will bear because the other guy's playing the lead as loud as he can make it. All right? And I think take your time going through the series. Watch out for your down ups. Your quarter notes are always down. If it's a note or a number, it just has a stick on it, it's a downswing. You should tap your foot down at the same time. If you have 4 notes tied together or 2 notes tied together at the bottom, then the first one's a down, the next one's an up, next one's a down, next one's an up. Okay, so be sure you alternate. Make sure you tap your foot, like I said, so it'll help you stay in time and keep your inner timing in sync with your right hand. Oh, let's see. I guess that'll about do it. I sure appreciate you joining me with this homespun series, and it's been a lot of fun for me. It's always a new experience. And just work it out and take your time, do it right. And I think what I'll do to end this is play one more tune, or I'll play the same one I did, Down Yonder, except I'll just go freelance. I just wish I had a rhythm player. Happy. Good to see you, bud. Let's pick a little bit of Down Yonder.
Sounds good.
You ready? You want to count it off?
You count it off.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1.